Thank you, Michael. I'm speechless, so I guess we can all go home. I think the first thing we have to do is turn this picture around. You know, it's really cruel to have a Photoshop picture of you next to the real thing under the spotlight. But all kidding aside, Michael, thank you very, very much for your kind words. And it's that's fortunate to be able to follow in your footsteps and work together walking down this road with you. It's a privilege. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, and congratulations to all the other honorees. It's a great night to celebrate success and the future. Michael alluded to it. I'm a recovering neurosurgeon. I don't do it anymore. I'm Kevin Tracey, and I'm a recovering neurosurgeon. I've been studying inflammation for 30 years. And it's a strange combination of career paths. And what I'll just talk about for a couple of minutes is reflecting on this, getting ready for tonight. It became very clear to me that I would not be here were it not for my Irish heritage. And that the things I learned from my Irish family and friends have been critical and instrumental at key steps in my life. So when I was 5, my mother died of a brain tumor, and it came on very, very suddenly, and my father was left to raise me and my younger brother, 15 months younger, and my sister, who was a year and a half younger than he. So my father was left with the three of us, and he did an amazing job. And I could go on for hours, and God rest his soul, I won't do that, but I know he's listening somewhere. But he never made us feel like the world was treating us bad. He celebrated everything that was good about life, and he was grateful for everything. He constantly talked about how lucky he was, and he made us feel lucky. The luck of the Irish was a real thing, and we learned from how he treated us and how he treated the world that from gratitude and luck comes optimism, and from optimism comes the ability to plan, and from planning and moving forward comes happiness and success. When my mother had died, her father was a professor of pediatrics at Yale, and I climbed on his knee and I asked him why did she die, and he said, well, the tumor was in her brain and the surgeon couldn't take it out because it would have left your mother not being your mother. And I said, well, somebody should do something about that. And Grandpa said, maybe you will. And so growing up in an optimistic household of doing something and doing things, I didn't know what I could do. I went to Boston College. There were a lot of Irishmen there in Boston. It was great in the 70s. But I thought I wanted to learn how to study science to help people, so I studied chemistry. I thought I could learn how to make drugs. And I learned how to make drugs, and I learned some chemistry, but I realized I didn't understand disease, so I went to medical school. And at Boston University School of Medicine, I fell in love with neurosurgery. And that neurosurgery was appealing because the complexities of the brain were so enthralling and captivating, and I loved the surgery, the technical aspects and the using your hands and working through an operation, the satisfaction. So I left Boston to come to New York to be a neurosurgeon who still wanted to do science and combine them in some way. And in New York, as a surgery trainee, I met a patient that changed my life forever. Her name was Janus. She was 11 months old and had been crawling across the kitchen floor when her grandmother was cooking dinner, spaghetti. And when Grandma turned to drain the boiling water in the sink, she tripped over Janus and spilled the water on her grandchild. So I met Janus. She was scalded over 90% of her body. And she had terrible chances to survive, but she did. For a month, she did fantastically well. And in fact, we were thinking of getting ready to send her home. And I was standing in the doorway to her room one day, watching her have her drink from a baby bottle, have her lunch in the arms of a nurse, and Janus rolled her eyes back and died. I ran in the room, I put her in my arm, I breathed into her mouth, I gave her CPR, pushing on her heart, and it seemed like it went on for forever, and she was gone. And I couldn't explain what happened. And so I decided then and there to study that problem that killed Janus, which was too much inflammation in her body that had caused her to go into shock. And fortunately, with my colleagues at Cornell, a few blocks from here, Rockefeller University, a few blocks from here, we made some important discoveries, and we learned the identity of the molecule that killed Janus. And the identity of the molecule was named TNF. And it's a molecule that your body makes during infection, but it wasn't the infection, it was actually Janus's own immune system. And we made an antidote to the TNF, and it's called Monoclonal Anti-Tnf. And we did the first ever experiments using monoclonal anti-TNF in the world. And we cured some baboons at 68th Street in an animal lab. They lived on 68th Street in an animal lab. Those molecules today have names like Remicade and Enbrel, and it's a $50 billion drug market to treat rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, and other illnesses, representing 5% of the trillion-dollar drug industry. It's been a huge success to see an experiment go from animals to humans to helping people. And so, like they used to say on Saturday Night Live, TNF has been very, very good to me. But something else happened in New York that was even more important. And on January 24th, 1984, on a blind date, I met my wife, Tricia McCardle. And from that date to today, she has been the center of my universe. Tricia is very Irish, as you can tell by her name. And one of the most important characteristics of Tricia's Irishness you realize immediately upon meeting her is that family is the center of the world. There's nothing more Irish than that. Family is the center of the home, and the family home is the center of the universe. And that's how Tricia lives her life, and that's how she's taught me to live mine. And by putting family at the center of the universe, it really has made it possible to do things that would otherwise, I think, have been impossible for me to do. So for instance, when it was time to get my first job at age 30-something, as a neurosurgeon, everybody said I couldn't do it. You can't be a neurosurgeon and do research. Everybody said I couldn't do it. The neurosurgeon said I couldn't have enough time to do science. The scientist said I didn't have time to do neurosurgery. Forget it. Pick one. See ya. And I came home very frustrated, and Tricia turns to me and goes, just do it. You come home here, go to work, and do it. That was the advice I got from my bride, and so I did. And in some ways, Tricia's advice and the story is very much like the Frank O'Connor story that JFK made so popular right after the space race, of supposedly an autobiographical story of Frank O'Connor running through the field with his friends, coming to an orchard surrounded by a tall wall. The wall was too tall to go over, and so the kids start talking, how are we going to go over this wall? The kid goes, I know, and he throws his hat over the wall. And the other kid said, now what the hell are we going to do? He says, we're going to go get our hat. And it's the same idea. And so basically, my hat landed at North Shore University Hospital more than 20 years ago, in 1994. And I didn't have gray hair then, neither did Michael, although Michael gave me most of mine. And we decided right away to start a laboratory that would try to make molecules that were better than the ones we'd made before. And at home, Tricia and I kept throwing hats too, and we now have 4 daughters. Maureen, Mary Bridget, Catherine and Margaret, nice strong Irish names. 2 of them, one graduated from the University of Notre Dame, and one is there now, the home of the Fighting Irish. And if you turn on the New Mexico football game on Saturday, you'll be able to see Catherine on the sidelines because she's a trainer on the football team. So go Irish, right? So in the laboratory, we started working on a molecule that would block TNF without having some of the problems that the antibodies had, because there's some problems with those drugs, and they don't work in everybody. And a horrible accident happened that was unexplainable, and that, because of our Irish luck, became the discovery. And the accident was we put the molecule in the brain to block the TNF in the brain of a mouse, and it did that. That was the plan. But what was not the plan was it also blocked inflammation throughout the whole body of these animals. And this made no sense whatsoever. So now I'm a neurosurgeon thinking about the brain for all these years, and I'm an immunologist seeing the brain do something to the body, so it was time to connect the dots, and that's what we did. And connecting the dots led to the birth of a new field of medicine called bioelectronic medicine. And the simple idea is, if you think of a nerve as carrying a signal to an organ to control the health of the organ, we can now do that with a computer chip implanted on a nerve in your neck called your vagus nerve. And that can turn off inflammation in animals with too much inflammation. We started a company to do clinical trials called SetPoint. And that company moved over, well, after 20 years of work and 500,000 man-hours, hundreds of publications with thousands of co-authors, we figured it all out. And then we did the clinical trial. And the clinical trial was to put a chip in patients with rheumatoid arthritis or Crohn's disease. We did both, and see if they would get better, and they did. So now we're in the position of talking about using electrons, battery-powered devices, to be implanted on nerves to control inflammation without injecting Remicade, without taking steroids, without using powerful anti-inflammatory medications, which don't work in all patients anyways. So this has been an incredible story that never would have happened. It's now we've raised hundreds of millions of dollars to do research in this field. With Michael's blessing, we've launched a new center on bioelectronic medicine as part of the Feinstein Institutes. I tell you, when I went to North Shore Hospital, it was me and a few other laboratories. And then Michael showed up, and we became ground zero of a $13 billion company, and I'm in charge of research there, so thank you for that too, Michael. And we have the opportunity to continue to invest heavily in research. In fact, Michael and I are currently working on a strategic plan to double or triple the research operation at Northwell. And one of the key leaders to this growth is actually here tonight being celebrated, Dr. Tom McGinn. So congratulations to Tom, too. We also have an incredibly important premium on developing strategic partnerships to accomplish what we have to do in research. And it's really also great to see here tonight Malcolm Bell and Rich Mulry, who have leading roles in helping us connect the dots to move our technology into patient use where it's so desperately needed. So Richard and Malcolm, thank you also. So I'm almost done. I will tell you at this point in the story, it's been an amazing ride to up through 2017 to see the papers published in good scientific journals, to see the grants come in, to see the growth of the research laboratories around us, to see to have hope that we're going to do something new and different that, frankly, the world hadn't seen before and can be done in a way that is, because it's a device, scalable and replicable and cheap and safe. And I didn't think it could get any better than that until September 21st, 2017. And I got an email. And the subject line was, "Thank you for saving my life." So I read that right away. And it was from a patient who told me in an email that would make you all cry, if I put it on a screen or something, that she, since 15 years old, had spent most of her adult life in and out of hospitals, in and out of wheelchairs, devastated and debilitated by Crohn's disease, failing therapy in many of the New York hospitals, failing therapy in Mayo Clinic, failing therapy in Hawaii, and ultimately losing her job as a grammar school teacher because she was too sick to work, and told by her doctors to get her affairs in order, to get used to being on steroids for the rest of her life, and certainly don't plan on having kids. So she went on to tell me that she found out about the clinical trial in Amsterdam that SetPoint was doing, and she sold everything she owned. She and her husband, Sean, moved to Amsterdam and enrolled in the trial, and she was writing to tell me that she was cured, and that she had had a vagus nerve stimulator, a bioelectronic medical device implanted in her neck, and she was now in remission. She had failed all available medications over the previous 15 years, and now she had gone from literally unable to walk without a cane to being in remission. So I said, "I'd love to meet you." She came to my office and gave me a present. It still stands in the corner of my office today. It's a cane, and she says she doesn't need it anymore. And, you know, I get to go around giving speeches, meeting wonderful people, getting introduced by a wonderful boss. And you know, this is great for me. I'm doing what I love. I was born to do this. And I'm not the hero. The patients who suffer and live with pain and take all the risk when all the therapies available to them don't work and the therapies run out, and then take all the risk of going in clinical trials. And so the hero tonight, really, I'm glad to tell you, is here. And I'd like you both to meet Kelly Owens and Sean Owens. Thank you. Thank you for being here. That concludes my remarks. I think the Irish dogma is really true. I think that being grateful for what you have, feeling lucky for what you're given to do on this earth and the opportunity to do it, being surrounded by wonderful people and collaborators, and believing that if you throw your hat over enough walls and keep chasing it in an optimistic way, that you can actually get what you want, and maybe that's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, I don't know. I'll just stop by saying, in memory of my dad, I wish he was here. He would have absolutely loved this. It's a lot better than the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick in the VFW hall on a Sunday before Thanksgiving. Although what he used to always say at this, he would take a bite of the food every Sunday, saying, "This is the best corned beef I ever had." So that's to you, Dad. And lastly, to my beautiful wife, Tricia, you are my home, and thank you.